Good morning. This is the June 25 meeting of the Development and Finance Committee of the Housing Opportunities Commission. And present with me this morning are my colleagues, Roy Priest, who serves as chair of the commission, and Rick Nelson, who serves as pro tem. The first order of business before us is the approval of the minutes of our committee meeting, May 21. May I have a motion to proceed with that, please?
So moved. Yeah. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye, please.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. And we're ready to move on to our first item of the morning, which is Georgian Court and the approval of the selection of Boston Financial Investment Management as a tax credit syndicator, and for the executive to negotiate and execute a letter of intent. I'm not sure who's going to be presenting this morning. Karine?
Good morning, commissioners and staff. For the record, I'm Karine Brown, Deputy Executive Director, and this item will have Hyun-Suk Choi, Housing Acquisition Manager in the Real Estate Division, who will discuss this item with you. Hyun-Suk, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Kerry. Good morning, Development Finance Committee. For the record, my name is Hyun-Suk Choi. I'm the Housing Acquisition Manager on the Real Estate Development team. Can you go to that page number 9, please? Thank you. So Georgian Court was originally construction in 1975 with 147 units. In June 2021, the commission approved that the selection of the Hamel Builders as a general contractor for the renovation of a Georgian Court apartment. In May 2021, staff solicited the proposal from the 16 low-income housing tax credit investors to select the equity investors for Georgian Court apartment. Staff received 4 investors a letter of intent from Boston Financial Investment Management, Enterprise Community Investment, and the PNC Bank, and the RBC Capital Market. Can you go to the next page? So the staff is expecting closing November this year, using 4% low-income housing tax credit equity and HOC issuing tax-exempt bond to proceed to fund all construction costs, and then prepay that the existing loan. So Georgian Court doesn't have any UFAS unit. The staff is adding adding 8 UFAS unit at the property, and then also upgrading existing playground. Next page, please. So Georgian Court is located within the qualified census tract, which means qualify for additional 30 base boost under low-income housing tax credit program. Next page. Step already mentioned that the step solicited the proposal from the 16 low-income housing tax credit investors. As you can see, that list of firms. However, we only received the 4 syndicated letter of intent. As I mentioned before, the Boston Financial Investment Management, Enterprise Community Investment, PNC Bank, and RBC Capital. Next page. When you look at to the left side, the corner, there is a eligible base for that acquisition, which is roughly the $38.5 million. Eligible base for the construction was a $19.6 million. Georgian Court is located within the qualified census tract, which is the additional 30 base additional boost. As you can see, the qualified base increased from that $19.6 million to $25.5 million. Multiply that applicable percentage, which is 4% currently now is a fix. So then eligible base for that acquisition is 1.5, and then eligible base for the construction is $1 million. Combined together is a $2.5 million multiplied 10 years, which is able to raise the equity at $25.6 million. After that, has to be multiplied that each investor's credit price, which is the Boston Financial, give us the highest price, which is a 96 cent, which is generating roughly the equity amount is $24.5 million. RBC was the 24.2, which is a variance of $384,000. And the PNC was a 92, which is a $23.5 million, which is $1 million variance between the Boston Financial. And the enterprise was a 91, which is generating $23.3 million, which is a $1.2 million variance between the enterprise and the Boston Financial. To the right side, you can actually see that each investors give us the equity pricing, equity pay-in schedule for including that development fee, which is a Boston Financial give us the highest, the favorable to project, especially for that the down adjusters. If that general contractors delivery a little bit behind the schedule, then credit price is actually 50 cents compared to the others. Actually, the Boston Financial was the lowest pricing. If they're delivery early, they give us the Boston Financial, they give us the 50 cents, but others actually give us the lower. But also, if the eligible base is actually higher, then Boston Financial actually give us the same pricing with the tax credit pricing. Year 15, there is a minimum gain is roughly $7.9 million. Compared to the others is a little bit the lower, but RBC is actually way too lower. So we are currently working with the Novogradac, our outside accountants, to identify that how they're able to get the lower minimum gain. So that's why they come up that estimate exit tax year 15 was $1.1 million, and then Boston Financial was the 1.9. But the right person refusal, they actually give us a more favorable terms, which is 3 years. Others is only give us 1 year. So guarantee amount and then guarantee period, which is 5 years. But the Boston Financial give us the 6 months operation expense and the debt service amount. However, PNC is actually almost a year. Others are pretty much the same. So release of a guarantee, Boston Financial give us the 12 months achieved debt service coverage 1.15. Enterprises require 2 years. RBC is require 15 months. Next page. So after review that proposal pricing, equity timing, paying time, and then transaction access, tax, and then others, staff recommend to approval selection of a Boston Financial as of a tax credit equity investors. Here's the following reason. Number one is they give us the highest pricing, 96 cents, and also most favorable time adjusters, and also investors that give us the lower exit tax end of year 15, but also Boston actually give us the early exit with a year 12 years, so which means that we are able to get the low exit tax, and also favor guarantee provision and the longer time allowed to exercise the right first refusal and the purchasing option. So the staff actually recommend to one investors post Georgian Court and the Shady Group, which mean potentially better pricing and eligible to negotiate the limited partnership both property at the one time, which mean we are using that the same loan documentation, construction documentation, others allowed to work with their counsel, the third party, their investors counsel, and then our counsel. So which means there's more reducing our legal cost. and also expedite the process faster. Eventually, it's going to be one point of a contact during the construction and after construction. So much favorable to have it one investor for the BOSS project.
Is there a dollar amount you can put on the savings as a result of the two?
So basically that the Boston Capital actually able to offer, I'm sorry, since they have a one investor's BOSS project, so Boston Capital actually already offer higher pricing, and they are reducing their legal cost $25,000.
And are you still negotiating on that to see if you can get any additional advantages?
Yes. So you will see that the next item is a Shady Group. Boston Capital actually give us the 92 cents. And then, so they're actually the second highest. Boston Capital, before we send it out to that DEFIN package, I'm sorry, after DEFIN package, actually Boston Capital give us the 93 cents. So the Boston Capital actually going to be highest pricing in Shady Grove project. And I will address that next item. So they actually already give us the reducing the legal cost, their cost, and then also they actually give us the better price.
And of course, our costs will be less as well.
Yes, potentially.
Are there other questions? If not, is there a motion?
I would move that we recommend this to go to a full commission.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Choi. From here, we move on to Shady Grove and a similar issue and consideration. Unsec, are you doing this,
Yes.
presenting this one as well? Thank you.
Good morning, Development Finance Committee. Again, for the record, my name is Hyun-Seok Choi. I'm the Housing Acquisition Manager on the Real Estate Development team. Can you go to page number 19, please? So Shady Grove was originally constructed in 1977 with 144 units. Same time, the commission approved the selection of the home builder as general contractors for the renovation of the Shady Grove apartment. Same time with the May 2021, staff solicited the proposal from the 16 low-income housing tax credit investors to select the equity investor for the Shady Grove apartment. The staff received only 3 investors LOI from the Boston Financial Investment Management and the PNC Bank and then RBC Bank. Next page. So similar to the Georgian Court, Shady Grove is expecting closing in November using 4% low-income housing tax credit equity and HOC issuing tax-exempt bond to proceed to fund all construction costs and then prepay that existing loan and creating that the UFAS 8 UFAS unit. Also, additionally, creating that the gym to the community room and also remove all asbestos containing material and then installing the radon mitigation system at the property. Next page. So Shady Grove is located nearby the Shady Grove metro station. However, the Shady Grove is not qualified within census tract, which is not eligible base, additional getting 30 base boost. Next page. So here's the 16 investors list. As I mentioned before, we only received 3 investors LOI. Next page. To the right, to the left side, the corner, there is a eligible base for that the acquisition of $38.4 million. eligible base for that, the construction, which is 18.4, as I mentioned before, is not the qualified census tract, which is multiplied the 100%, exact same amount as $18.4 million. So this property is able to generating $22.7 million, and then multiply that each investor's pricing. So PNC is the highest pricing. Boston is a second, only small dollar amount. However, as I mentioned before, Boston Capital actually give us the 93 cent, and which is the highest pricing. And staff is updating that the commission package to reflecting 93 cent on the package. However, the PNC is not accepting county insurance, which means the operation expense is going to be increased and then loan amount will be reduced. So that is not really favorable compared to that.
Hansik, why is it not eligible to use the county's self-insurance on this development?
It's not that it's not eligible. It's the PNC doesn't accept the insurance. So every bank or tax credit syndicator, they sort of have their own rules and requirements. And PNC's, I assume it's their counsel, has must have opined that this is less acceptable form of insurance for them. As a consequence, it raises the pricing. If PNC were accepted, it would raise the pricing of insurance on the property and thus the operating costs. I'm sorry, go ahead.
In relation to that, does PNC understand that this makes them less competitive?
Yeah, they understand it, but it makes them less competitive for us. But you have to understand that we HOC are incredibly unique in the sort of depth, scale, and breadth at which we're operating across financial tools. So we're not there. We're sort of atypical, I think, for PNC. They're not a strong player in Montgomery County. Certainly haven't. I can't think of a tax credit deal they've won since we've been here. But they are, unlike Bank of America, at least they're bidding more aggressively now with terms that make a lot of sense and are better aligned.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I just couldn't figure why they would risk that.
Is PNC still the bank for the county?
I think they are because they were supposed to be an RFP, and I think somehow it may have gotten delayed or whatever because of COVID. But I believe they are, in fact.
They are.
Wow, that's strange. Okay.
Well, so look, here's. You think it's strange. Everyone who participated in the interviews for our investment banks think it's strange. The only folks who don't think it's strange are the bankers themselves, internal, to each of these sort of, I would say the top 10 banking institutions are so unsophisticated when it comes to gaining synergy in their operations. So whether it's their conventional lending, their community lending, their tax credit investment and or syndication, and their capital markets, they just have a level of clumsiness and fiefdom that's really bizarre to us as well. But for whatever reason, it's worked for them, and they seem to keep it.
Well, is there something we should be doing in terms of working with the insurance folks to get them to sell their product to the banks?
We've actually ramped up our efforts around risk management and insurance significantly, given just the general pricing increases and pricing pressure that we've been seeing,
Right.
and affordable for probably the last 4 years. So we're asking, we're pushing, we're cajoling a little bit, but every time there's the slightest little issue, these guys just point to the risk profile. And then COVID was not exactly a friend to us in this regard. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time for it to shake out, for them to calm themselves down.
Okay.
And if I may just add one thing, just to clarify the issue here for PNC, they have an asset management consultant that is insisting on PNC be added as an additional insured, and the county just will not allow that. And that's the rub. Most investors will accept most investors will accept being named as a loss payee, and that's fine. And we've seen that in all of the tax credit in investments, that's been acceptable, except for PNC. And so it requires us to go outside of the county's self-insurance fund to obtain property insurance. And that's what drives the cost higher for transactions where PNC is involved. And we've lobbied the bankers to try to get some relief, and there's a Chinese wall that's separate from our banking relationship. We've not been able to get any relief there.
Well, I would just prefer to be able to, when terms are competitive, to deal with the local institution, and I'm disappointed that we've not been able to or that they've not been able to recognize the value of what we're doing and the stability of the county's self-insurance. It's
not the bankers at all, because
their advisor.
Yeah, they've worked hard with us on just about everything we've asked for, but not this one yet. And we continue to work with them.
And is there any way that the self-insurance fund can modify their policy?
No. You and to be honest, given the breadth of assets it covers, it wouldn't be prudent for them to do it, because read slightly differently, it would cause them additional exposure.
Right.
Okay.
That's a question. Can you explain what the 3-cent price spread is between the bid on Georgian as opposed to Shady Grove? One was 96 cents, and this one is 93.
Yeah. So what it comes down to is competitiveness in submarkets. And so Silver Spring generally sees a little bit higher pricing than does Up County. Up County sees pricing that is very similar to Frederick. The closer you get to DC, the closer it is to plain vanilla, although, and what I mean by plain vanilla is strictly affordable, although quite frankly, the advent of income averaging is starting to change that. But it's really about the submarket itself, Commissioner Priest. And often the syndicator has an investors interested in particular areas. Mm-hmm. Those are the areas that get greater pricing for those investors. I will tell you, we should be really pleased to see in the 90s at this point, because there had been, and I'm not actually sure why we're seeing 96 and 93, because there had been projected an actual softness that had prices into the very early 90s, if at all, and then down into the upper 80s. So this is one of those situations where we need to work this thing out as quickly as possible on all of these and lock it in so that we don't see a downward adjustment in this pricing.
I liked it when it was $1.20.
Good old days.
That's old days, right? So I just want to add into that the Stacy's comment. So Georgian Court is so that Boston Financial found that only one source investor, which is a Fannie Mae. However, the Shady Grove, they couldn't find it at the investor. So this is a multi-fund, which is the pricing is a little bit lower than Georgian Court.
And Hansa, can you tell us a little bit more about this issue with RBC and their minimum gain estimates, which are extraordinarily low, and what Novogradac is doing?
So yes, so HOC engaged with the Novogradac to working on the financial forecasting. So basically that the capital account is actually much lower. Somehow they're expediting the process. So I'm not expert, so that's why we are hiring a third party to evaluating it. So they told me that I should have it next week. They're forecasting. So if I have a better information, I will share with you. But what I asked them is, we are going to engage with the Boston Financial. So they're actually working on their projection. But I'm going to I asked them to how they RBC able to get the much lower. So that's why they're currently working on it. If I can able to using the RBC strategy, can we able to apply for that the Boston Financial?
Right.
So that's what they are currently working on.
Okay.
Would this affect our recommendation to the full commission?
Oh, no. Based on the pricing, if you compare to the 93 versus 80, that's a $1.1 million variance.
Okay.
But also in terms of that guarantee provision and also the time adjustment and other stuff, and then also the paying equity paying in and then development fee paying in schedule, Boston Financial is much better than Twofer.
And then we get the Twofer benefits as well. I can see that.
Okay.
Are there any further questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
So I move we recommend this to go to the full commission.
I second the
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we are ready to move on to, at long last, the demolition of Emery Grove Village. We've been struggling with this for quite a while. I think everybody will be pleased to see it finally go.
And
So, who is
Paul Vinciguerra, our construction manager in the real estate division, will be discussing this item with you. Paul, go ahead.
good morning, Paul?
Commissioners. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. I'm here today to request approval to select Tamil Enterprises Incorporated as a demolition contractor for Emery Grove Village in accordance with invitation for bid 2253, and to request authorization for the executive director to negotiate and execute a contract for the demolition. Can we go down to page 3, please? Thank you. Emery Grove Village is located 8107 Morning View Drive in Gaithersburg, Maryland, and it's a 54-unit former public housing community. Emery Grove is currently vacant. We will be demolishing 4 buildings and a management office on site that have reached the end of their useful life cycles. On February 6, 2019, the commission approved the demolition of Ambassador Apartments in Wheaton and Emery Grove Village. The Ambassador Apartments completed demolition in April 2020, but Emery Grove was not demolished, and the original invitation for bid for the demolition contractor, which was approved at that time, has expired. So on April 23rd, 2021, HOC issued an invitation for bid 2253 for the demolition of Emery Grove Village. HOC had received 7 bids ranging in price from $488,000 to $1,181,450. Pursuant to the IFB or invitation for bid, the contract will be awarded to the responsive and responsible bidder offering the lowest base bid. A responsive bidder provides a bid that meets the criteria laid out in the invitation for bid. A responsible bidder demonstrates that it has the experience, personnel, equipment, and finances to perform the requirements of the contract. After evaluation of the bids received, staff recommends that the Development Finance Committee award IFB 20, recommend that we go to the commission to approve Tamil Enterprises and authorize the executive director to negotiate and execute a contract for the demolition of Grove. Staff has determined that Tamil is a responsive and responsible bidder and that its proposal meets the qualifications and financial requirements of the IFB 2253. Tamil bid of $488,000 was the lowest received. The award of IFB 2253 will be funded from Capital Improvement Program CIP funds provided by Montgomery County. Staff is including the demolition of a small shed and garage to the scope of work, which added $4,800 to Tamil's final price, which still has Tamil as the lowest qualified bidder at $492,800 for the demolition. Staff proposes the contingency of 15% totaling $73,920 to be added to the demolition price of $492,800, totaling $566,720. There is a $806,241.68 of CIP funding currently available for the use by HOC to fund the demolition of Emery Grove Village.
The county ought to be happy
demolition.
with that bid.
Yes, I'm happy with that bid, yes, considering it's 2 years later and the prices have
Yes.
increased quite a bit. So the demolition of Emery Grove is expected to start in August 2021, and we expect it to take approximately 60 days to complete. Can we go down to page, I believe page 6, that shows all the bids we received. That way you can see them. The range of the 7 bids.
Do you have any idea why the range is so vast? I mean, from
Yes, I
$500,000
actually didn't
to
know that
over $1
this
million?
time, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
the highest bidder was actually the lowest bidder at Holly Hall a few months ago. And they just assumed an extraordinary amount of asbestos to be abated, where the other firms did not. And Gold Services is always high. Every time they put a bid in for one of our demolitions, they're always one of the highest bidders. Other than that, all the other bids are pretty competitive.
Well, I'm delighted to see it's a local firm as well.
Yes, exactly. They're located in Rockville, Maryland, so which is good.
Mhm.
So, okay, can we go down to page 8, please? Should be the last page.
Date. Oh,
This page here, the one where I'm, there we go.
I move that we,
Perfect. Thank you.
oh,
All right, this is, will the Development Finance Committee join staff's recommendation to the commission to select Tamil Enterprises Incorporated as a demolition contractor for Emery Grove in accordance with the IFB 2253 and authorize the executive director to negotiate and execute a contract for $492,800 with the firm to complete the demolition of Emery Grove. Approve the demolition budget of $566,720, which includes a contingency of $72,720 to be funded from funds appropriated by Montgomery County CIP fund.
Rick, you were ready to make a motion, I believe.
yes,
Okay,
I move that we forward this recommendation to the full commission for approval.
I
And
second
is
that
there a
motion.
second?
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Be anxious
too.
to see that as a vacant site.
Yes, it would be nice.
Our next item is Willow Manors Properties, and we're looking to select PNC as a tax credit syndicator.
and this item will be discussed by Catherine Hollister, Senior Financial Analyst in the Real Estate Development Group. Catherine, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning. Good morning, commissioners. For the record, my name is Catherine Hollister. I'm a senior financial analyst in the real estate division. Staff is requesting that the Development and Finance Committee join its recommendation to the commission on the following items related to the renovation and resyndication of the Willow Manor properties. The first is authorization to select PNC as a tax credit syndicator for the transaction. The second is approval and ratification of the formation of ownership entities. And the third is approval of additional pre-development and prepaid closing funds. On page 37 of your brief book, you'll find an executive summary for the transaction. In 2018, HOC acquired 3 age-restricted senior properties. They are Willow Manor at Cloppers Mill, Willow Manor at Fair Hill Farm, and Willow Manor at Colesville. Together, these properties are referred to as the Willow Manor properties and consist of 286 units. The Willow Manor properties were built in 2004 and 2005 and have reached the end of their initial 15-year tax credit compliance period. While the properties have been well maintained, they are in need of upgrades and improvements to increase operational performance and remain marketable. On page 40 and 41 of your brief book, you'll find a summary of staff's LIHTC indicator solicitation for this transaction. Staff solicited proposals from 16 LIHTC indicators to select an equity investor. Staff received 2 letters of intent, one from Boston Financial and the other from PNC Bank. While Boston Financial's proposal offers the most advantageous combination of equity price, equity pay-in schedule, and exit taxes, PNC's proposal offers the greatest certainty of executing the desired transaction structured, which is the income averaging set aside. As a result, staff recommends selecting PNC as a tax credit syndicator for the Willow Manor properties, and authorization for the executive director to negotiate and execute a letter of intent outlining the terms of a limited partnership agreement. Staff would return to the commission in September for approval and execution of the limited partnership agreement. On page 42 of your brief book is the proposed ownership structure for the resyndication of the properties. Staff is requesting authorization to ratify the formation of wholly owned special purpose entities to serve as the new property owner and managing member entities for the transaction. Page 43 summarizes the revised pre-development budget for the transaction. On April 2020, the commission approved a pre-development budget and funding in the amount of $400,000. Staff is requesting additional pre-development funds as well as prepaid closing costs to cover all anticipated costs between now and closing, which is expected to occur in October 2021. Specifically, staff is requesting $541,200 in pre-development funding and $920,000 in prepaid closing costs to be funded in the form of a loan from the FHA risk-sharing MIP cash reserve, which would be repaid at LIHTC closing. The pre-development funds would be drawn between July and October and will be outstanding for less than 4 months, whereas the prepaid closing costs would be drawn between September and October 2021 and would be outstanding for less than 60 days. As of March 31st, 2021, the FHA risk-sharing MIP cash reserve had an available balance of a little over $11 million. On page 44 lists the summary and recommendations for this item. Staff is requesting that the Development and Finance Committee join its recommendation to the Commission to approve PNC as a LIHTC syndicator for the transaction, to ratify the formation of wholly owned special purpose entities to serve as the new property owner and managing member, approval of additional pre-development funds in the amount of $541,200 to be funded with a loan from the FHA risk-sharing MIP cash reserve, and approval of prepaid closing funds in the amount of $920,000 to be funded with a loan from the FHA risk-sharing MIP cash reserve. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Don't we have the same problem with PNC and insurance on this one?
We do, and we've engaged their risk management team and our risk management team, and we are trying to work with a solution. We've provided basically the information that seems to work with other LIHTC indicators to PNC, and we've explained sort of the particularities around the county self-insurance fund, and they're reviewing it now. I'm hopeful that we can find a solution, but that is still an issue that is outstanding. the reality is that this recommendation is really based on the ability of PNC to execute the transaction as desired and utilizing income averaging. Whereas Boston Financial, while they are able to accept the county's health insurance fund and they have better or more favorable equity pricing terms and Payin Schedule, they just, at this time, they would not be able to execute income averaging and thereby restricting all of our market rate units. Instead of restricting it to 80% AMI, it would be restricted to 60% AMI, which would risk putting some market rate residents at risk of displacement who would be over income at that 60% AMI level.
On the pay-in schedule, it looks like Boston Financial will give us 80% by construction completion. We don't get that much from PNC until later, right?
Right.
Yeah, PNC has 5 pay-in benchmarks, whereas Boston Financial only has 3. I would say that the difference between the timing of construction completion and draft cost certification is only a matter of a few months.
Okay.
But yes, that is true. Boston Financial's equity pays in faster than PNC's.
And the chart that you have that shows these is a little bit misleading because it shows you the difference on each line item, but it doesn't show you the cumulative difference, if you understand what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
The other question I really have, though, is having waded through the first 2 items that we had on the agenda when I was going through the packet, I noticed that you have a different method of presentation of the same data. And I would urge you guys to decide what the best format is and be somewhat uniform in terms of making the presentation to the commission. Doesn't make sense to have different formats for the same kind of requests.
We can do that.
Yeah, we'll make them consistent.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that if we look at the 2, and I haven't compared them line by line, I think there's some advantages and disadvantages in both. And I think that, I mean, there's some information in both that if we consolidate them would be more informative to the commission. So I just urge you to look at them and come up with a single format that is the most informative for the commission.
Question. If you're not able to work out the details we talked about with PNC Bank, would it be the plan of the staff to come back with a different recommendation for the tax credit investor? And how long are the entities that are bidding willing to hold their prices?
So right now we are asking to the authority to execute an LOI, which means it still provides us an opportunity to negotiate the terms before executing the LOI. So we would seek to try to get this issue resolved before executing the LOI, and staff would return to the commission in September for approval of a limited partnership agreement before they're officially sort of admitted as the LIHTC investor. So that is the sort of the next steps. So
yeah, but Catherine, he's asking, Commissioner, if we can't come to terms with them, and I think Catherine's alluding to this, we're simultaneously trying to work out issues of comfort with the next group, Boston Financial, on income averaging. If they can get there, and we can settle some of these other smaller things, and they'll be hopefully standing there if we're in short order unable to reach terms with PNC. So we'll still be talking to both of them, but right now, given PNC's overall offer and their comfort with income averaging,
Right.
they make the most sense for us.
So,
Kath-
but I'm not sure what the answer is to the question. If in fact you can't work it out with them,
Mhm.
what and when would you come back to us with a proposal to go with
It,
Awesome.
it'll have to be
Well-
soon. It'll have to be soon because now soon is also when the commission meeting is, right? But it's probably going to be just after commission meeting before we absolutely know if we've been able to work that out. So it would be sometime in July that we come back because we still want to close in October. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And
And
realistically,
let me just following that though, having had this discussion, you would come back and ask for the authority to do a LOI with Boston?
I think we'd have to be at that point. We'd have to be probably a little more aggressive in advancing it, just to keep the timing of October. So the answer is unsure what form it would be in. We might have to ask you all to be comfortable with notice to get it to the entire commission if we're not able to, in a special session, if we're not able to come to terms quickly enough.
All right. Catherine, at what point does the renovation and improvement plans and design come before us?
That would come before you guys in September when we bring the final development plan, which will
Okay.
outline the finalized scope of work and all the improvements.
I see that collectively there are 78 units with 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. And my hope is that you would consider in that provision that 1 bath in each of those units be a curbless shower. There's not near the accessibility issues or concerns given the age of these properties and their population. But I think having the benefit of curbless showers in at least those 2 bath units would make the units much more flexible and adaptable for folks and more usable. So hopefully you'll crank that into the proposal when you bring it to us.
Yes, Commissioner Simon, we're actually looking to convert all existing showers to a curbless shower. So it will be more
Amazing.
to those 2 bedroom
Wonderful.
units.
I will do a happy dance.
Stacy, let me go back to the issue I raised before. What about if at the July meeting you came up with another proposal to the commission, which said, in effect, if you can't do the LOI with PNC, if you're unsuccessful in negotiating the terms for an LOI with PNC, that you are authorized to begin negotiations of an LOI with Boston. Then you wouldn't have to come back.
Yeah, I think ordinarily that'd be awesome. The issue is that it's sort of a technical snag on income averaging that a technical legal snag that Boston Capital is at. So, I mean, what we really have to do, Commissioner, is cost out the additional
I see. Okay.
operating expense and experience that we will have with regard to heightened insurance and try to minimize that. I mean, I think the risk management effort is really to try to manage that cost as far down as possible. But I think at this point, we're sort of like a 95% likelihood of going with PNC just based.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
Are there other questions?
well, I just want to make a broader point. So this is the point now. I think 16 syndicators, and we had responses from 2. So, geography is one factor, but there are many, many more, like the fact that tax credit syndicators are inundated with product right now. Everybody's asking them to price out stuff. And so and many of the funds have already committed everything they've got, and others are oversubscribed and looking for deals to push off.
So you're saying we should expect fewer responses to our RFPs?
I think that it will right itself, but we have 5 or 6 volume cap related transactions that are on an extremely aggressive time schedule, realistic but aggressive time schedule that can't slip. And within that time period, I don't think we're going to get significant increases or additional responses to requests for pricing for tax credits.
And is there a concern of placing too many of these with one firm?
No, this year it'll be one firm. Next year it'll be, another firm. It really is about the evenness in the market. So we've got 2 proposed to go to Boston Financial. One that's that's proposed to go to PNC in this batch here. These guys have the best terms for us at the moment in each respective category. And we feel like we can actually get to a closing that makes sense within the time frame desired. And the pricing's not awful. It actually, I'm pleasantly surprised at 2 of them. And happy with a third.
Are there other questions from my colleagues? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move that we forward this recommendation to the full commission.
Second, please.
I guess Commissioner Priest had to step away. So you have to
All
second.
All right. I will provide the second. And just for the record, be sure that we have 2 affirmative votes. Rick, would you say aye, please?
Aye.
And I also support the motion. So it is approved. And thank you, Catherine, for your work on this.
Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the committee this morning?
That is all we have for you today. Thank you.
Wonderful. I hope all of you have a good weekend, and we'll see you again soon.